everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. It's me, Steven, again, and with us this week we have, of course, John back at it. Good to have you back, buddy. Voiced by D. Bradley Baker, like so many other characters in this show. And you guys know, or ought to know, Dan from Voice of Geekdom by now. If you don't, like, what are you doing with your life? Again, I say it every time. Best Silmarillion videos ever. Like I love how you break them down. I love how you explain them in a way that makes it really sort of like digestible without having to unravel all the flowery language. I love it. I love it.
That's the idea. Thank you.
But I think you really stepped it up lately with this video you did about comparing Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings adaptation with the books. I mean, that just reached a whole nother level, I think.
I think so. I think it was excellent content. To say nothing of the guest support that I had. It was a good podcast and some really nice comments on it as well.
And I will say this, yes, Mrs. Duncan the Tall lives, I don't know exactly where you live, Cece, but not too crazy far from me. We live in the same sort of metro area. And yeah, there's thunder. You might hear some thunder during this stream. It's raining pretty good. And it is, you guys heard it right before we started streaming.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
So hopefully nothing happens to the power or anything.
There it goes. I just heard it.
Yep. But yeah, so there is a little bit of thunder. Can't do anything about that yet. But yeah. So let's talk about some Avatar: The Last Airbender, shall we? Now, full disclosure, Dan, you've seen the whole thing, but you watched it this year, right?
Yeah, I finished it about 4 months ago, I think. So it took me a couple of months to watch it all. And as I was telling you earlier on, the part of the reason I watched it is because I heard you talk about it, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. Actually, I've always sort of known Avatar, but I've never really sort of got stuck into it properly. So I just decided to get stuck in, and really, really glad that I did, because I can definitely see what the fuss is about.
Right, and John, you've seen what, one season?
Yep, I just wrapped up season 1 a couple hours ago.
Maybe I should mute when I'm not talking because there's a lot of thunder. Yeah, so you just finished watching season 1, which I often, oh my God.
But it's fitting, isn't it? You're caught in a storm.
So. I am. That, which we'll get to it, but that is such a pivotal episode of the show as a whole. So normally I ask the guests first, but Dan, you've seen the whole thing, and John, you've really only seen one season. So I'm going to ask you first. What do you think so far?
Yeah, it was quite a journey for me with the show, because actually I had watched the first 8 episodes actually much earlier, because I had tried to get into the show, and then just things got in the way of going all the way through, and I got sidetracked. So this was actually my second time through watching those first 8 episodes. I remember you telling me back then, like, oh, but right after that is when it really starts to get good. So so when I started watching the show, I felt like, I want to be honest with my initial impression, so that I can tell you sort of where I've gone. I found it entertaining, but I was like, this is very obviously, feels geared towards kids and sort of its tone and everything. And I'm going to keep giving it a chance. Not sure if it's going to reach the heights for me that it does for everybody else. But then things start to happen along the way in the show. And about right after those first 8 episodes, you start to really notice some character depth and also thematic depth. The show starts to really explore issues of, war and sort of, differences between different tribes and how you overcome that stuff. And as far as the characters, I agree. The Storm is kind of a pivotal character. That's sort of, I think, when the show started to really lock in for me. Like, I think I see where this is going. I can see why people really love it. But I was unprepared for the emotional journey of especially the last couple episodes. I was really taken off guard by how impactful all that was. And so by the end of the season, I would say, like, I'm fully in, and I'm actually quite anxious to see, like, given for me how the show evolved over the course of just this first season. And I've heard you say that it just ratchets up from here. So I'm really anxious to see sort of the heights that the show goes to from here.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really, really, really glad that you've been grabbed by it. I didn't think that you wouldn't be, but if it does take a little while to get going. So
yeah,
Dan,
but I think that's a good thing, though. It takes its time laying the groundwork, so it feels, by the end of the season, it feels very earned.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
So Dan, now you're you're also a recent convert. Full disclosure, I watched the show a long time ago, and I've seen the whole series more times than I could accurately count. But Dan, this is only your you've seen some episodes twice now, I guess.
Yeah, I've been rewatching today. So I've watched up to episode 8, which the aforementioned episode 8, which is quite a big turning point. As John was just explaining, it gets a lot better from there. It gets stronger, and you get a lot more character depth and so on from that point. But yeah, so I have rewatched the first 8, but yeah, I've only watched the whole show through once. But I have seen it all. So rewatching it again now, I'm definitely looking out for little bits of foreshadowing and stuff that I might have missed, which you can't really praise a show any higher than that once you start rewatching it. But yeah, great show.
You're muted, Stephen.
That's going to take some getting used to.
I thought the problem was on my end there because I was just talking and talking.
No,
and then
it's definitely, I'm muting because the thunder is pretty constant. I love this show unabashedly. The show as a whole lands in my top 5 shows of all time, not top 5 animated, not top 5 kid shows, whatever. Top 5 TV shows ever. Full stop. I put it up with The Expanse and Game of Thrones and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I love this show. Season 1 is the weakest to me. It's still really, really good though, and like you say, John, they do start to layer in some of these deeper themes. Yeah. Dan, you and I discussed it earlier.
They're doing a ton of world building in this season, and they're doing it phenomenally, and they're doing it quite quietly as well, because you don't really notice it happening the first time you watch this show.
Matthew, go watch it. I mean, It is so good. I mean, I know you're in Europe. I think you're in Germany, if I remember correctly. I don't want to out you necessarily, so you don't have to confirm or deny or anything. But yeah, it's definitely worth your time.
Yeah, I want to say that it's like I talked about how blown away I was by the last couple episodes. Like, that would not have been the case if this show had not put in all the work that it does over the course of the rest of the season. It layers in a lot of character work, a lot of for lack of a better word, the mythology of the show is very carefully laid in over the course of the season. And so like to sort of have my jaw dropping at moments in like the 2-part finale, it just wouldn't have been the case if the show hadn't been so successful in just building the world. And so yeah, I think it's it's worth it, even if you don't immediately feel drawn in. And this has happened with other shows for me. I famously, well, not famously, maybe nobody else even knows about it, but to me at least, when I first started watching when I first started watching Battlestar Galactica, I remember I was not particularly like grabbed by the miniseries that opens that show. It's sort of that's another show that I feel kind of over the course of the first season layers in a lot of great work, and then the show just blossoms from there. And I feel like that's probably the case with the show as well.
I would say so. And, Dan, I said this to you earlier when we were talking, but this show never goes over the line of being inappropriate for a 10-year-old to watch. Like, no. It doesn't go there. But
no, there are a ton of background themes to make an adult think, but none of it is integral to the plot in that way.
Right. But like, you can have a 10-year-old can watch this, a 9-year-old can watch this, and there's not something that's too deep or too it's not inappropriate for a 9-year-old to watch this. But somebody in their 30s, 40s can also watch it and be like, no, there is so much here to chew on. And the character development, John, I mean, you've only got one season of it so far, but and I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it has literally maybe the best character progression for one character that I've ever seen anywhere. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. And when we get to season 3 of covering this show eventually, we'll discuss that then.
I'd be interested to know which character John thinks that could be, actually. As a guest.
I mean, I've heard things, so I'm pretty sure it's Zuko, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Matthew says when he watched the first episode of Clone Wars, he disliked it and decided he didn't want to watch Clone Wars, and now he's a huge fan. Mm. Sometimes you have to power through the beginning. That's absolutely right. I did not like Clone Wars early on either.
You were saying you had the same experience with Clone Wars when you started.
But like, it ain't the mid-roll, but I'll tell you, we're talking about season 7 of the Clone Wars next week.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that I know he probably ended up leaving to work on Clone Wars, but in this first season of the show, Dave Filoni directed a number of episodes. Mm-hmm. So it was cool for me seeing his name pop up several times.
He cut his teeth on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
And obviously he's super talented. You look how this show and his other shows have turned out. So, yeah.
It's funny because having watched so much of his work across like Clone Wars, Rebels, and even The Mandalorian, I could sort of, when I saw his name pop up at the end of certain episodes, I was like, that makes sense, because there was a certain touch to many of his episodes that I could sort of recognize, his talent and what he would later, develop on those other shows. But then there were several episodes that didn't have his name on it that I was like, holy crap, that was great. So I think they just had a lot of really great talent on the show.
Now, these are 20, the first 2 seasons are 20 episodes. Season 3 is 21. And every season has its filler episodes, but you've already seen the worst episode, what is considered by far the worst episode of the entire series. And that is the Great Divide. Shall we start with the Great Divide? Let's start.
Really? I would not. That's funny. I would not have picked that as the weak.
It's completely detached from the rest of the story. You can literally skip it and never notice.
Is that the one where they're trying to sort of cross a cliff or like a chasm?
Through a canyon
kind of thing. Yeah.
And there's the two tribes. It kind of almost universally regarded as the worst episode of the show. And it's really not that bad.
No, it's not that bad.
I don't even like. I wouldn't even sort of qualify that as like, you know, the least interesting episode for me, because I think it actually, you know, had some really great thematic work, and I feel like all the episodes are kind of building on like Aang going around and sort of, you know, learning through, you know, through doing his avatar thing, and also kind of maybe building up his reputation as the avatar, so that maybe his you know, the tales spread, and so for me it didn't really feel detached, and I'd have to go through the list of episodes, but I'm sure that probably wasn't even my least favorite. So I don't know, but I can see, like, a lot of people, like, if it doesn't tie into like the major ongoing storylines, I get it. A lot of people don't like those episodes, but
yeah, I've heard a theory that it's also the one that, because you don't necessarily have to know, because it's more detached from the main the main through line, it's the one that got played on reruns a lot, because you didn't have to know what was happening before or after.
So maybe people just got sick
and they saw it a lot, and like,
that makes sense.
It is what it is, but it in general is not highly regarded. When you start ranking episodes, it is consistently the one placed at the bottom. It's still good, which tells you how great the show is. And I don't want to spoil anything exactly, but like, none of those characters ever come back, you know. They're one-offs. Some characters do come back eventually, but that's not one of them. Shall we just, like, okay, so John and Dan, I'll ask you both this. Should we just go through the episodes, or should we talk about characters and the way that they're sort of presented throughout season 1?
Yeah, I'd be more interested to kind of take an overarching view rather than go through each episode, because there's so many sort of, you know, we just got through talking about how there's a lot of standalone, sort of quote unquote standalone episodes, even though many of them, you know, like pretty much all the episodes just sort of build on character relationships and the thematic work and all that. So I don't like, so in that way, they're not standalone, but they are. I mean, I did kind of feel that, especially in the first 8 episodes, or you know, prior to episodes 7 and 8. But yeah, so bottom line, it would just be more interesting to me to you know, take in sort of the character journeys and all that overall.
I'd go along with that.
A convoluted way of saying that.
Okay, you down with that, Dan?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've watched all of the episodes in the middle of the season, so it suits me.
Well, shall we start with the titular character? Aang is the Avatar, and he is the last Airbender. What's your read on Aang, John? Do you have? Well, actually, before we go do that, let me ask you this: season 1, who's your favorite character?
Katara.
Okay, Dan. Season 1.
I'd probably say Katara as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I did like Zuko a lot straight away, though. Even before, you know, I watched season 2 and 3, I knew that there was stuff to come with this character.
Yeah, I'm sort of waiting.
And I was intrigued with where it was going, but he's kind of a villainous character in the first season.
Yeah, he kind of is.
I wasn't really like things open up for him for me in the episode The Storm. Once you get, I feel that's when his, you start to get some real character depth with him. I will say, like, even though my favorite character is Katara, the MVP of the season is without a doubt Uncle Iroh, because he makes Zuko's storyline far more entertaining and interesting than I think it would be otherwise. At least in this season. Not to enrage any Zuko fans, because I'll get to the later.
Well, like, you're allowed to like whoever you like. That's why there's a lot of characters, and like, so I'm a Sokka guy.
Oh god,
I love Sokka. Well, when we get to him, we'll talk about why. But just kind of wanted to get a read for where you were at with which characters you love so far. But we should start with Aang. It's his show. He is the main. It is the main. He is the main character.
Yeah, I definitely like. I'm probably just really partial to Katara, but I feel like like the show starts with her really. She frees Aang from the ice. She voices the opening. A lot of journey is for her. Yeah, I'm not going to fight anybody on this point, but I think Katara is sort of.
I think really narratively and structurally, the show is kind of an ensemble cast show, really. Even though there's a title character who's obviously the key to the plot, we spend quite a lot of time with all the other main cast all the time in terms of screen time.
That's true. I'm just saying he's the titular character. So if you guys want to talk about Katara first, we can.
No, let's we can talk about Aang. Yeah, it's like he's just it's fun because he has these moments of like I got really excited when he started to in the finale really take it to the Fire Nation early on in the two-part finale, but then he's got this other side where he's just a kid and he's sort of wants to goof around. I very much enjoyed all the parts where he's like, okay, this is very important, we have to go here, 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 and here. And they're like, what's there? He's just talking about all this fun stuff he wants to do. So so it's great the way they layer in that humor.
Yeah, he's a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
He wants to go do fun stuff. And you even see through some flashbacks that his people are sort of detached from physical things, and the flashbacks in The Storm kind of show you how he grew up. And like Monkey Otso was a trickster, even though he was 60-something years old. He was still playing pranks, let's make these pies and then shoot them with airbending on the heads of the other guys. And you see the children playing games with each other, which is not something you see a lot of. Sokka and Katara don't do it. I guess you see some of the Water Tribe little kids playing in the snow, but like the Airbenders are a very sort of carefree type people, and he's a 12-year-old.
Well, it was a different time as well, wasn't it? Because it was before the war, when he was a child. Yeah,
I again, going back to the episode The Storm, I think like there's so much great stuff for his character in that episode. When you see those flashbacks and you see the fun he has with the other students, but then once it's revealed that he's the Avatar, he's not allowed to take part in that, and he starts feeling like he's losing everything, and then they want to take his his mentor away, and it's just that was when I know that that's when I knew the show kind of had me, because I started, feeling the emotional, the tug at the heartstrings, and and it was heartbreaking to watch, his teacher come in and say, "I'm not going to let them take you," but it's too late. He's already gone off, and yeah, and as somebody just mentioned, that he uses sort of fun as a defense mechanism. And what's interesting is that when he first comes out of the ice, he's instantly like, he's asking for some kind of food or is something. But if you think of what he was just coming from, I mean, I think that bears it out, that he uses that as a defense mechanism. He was probably still reeling from everything he had been going through. And so, yeah, I found that really interesting and very compelling. Just, he's a fun, goofy character at times, but then when things get serious, it's great character work. Very compelling.
Okay, muting again. Because despite being that like bubbly, positive style attitude, he has, as you say, some real deep emotional moments. It's season 3 when he discovers the body of his master.
Well,
long dead. I mean, not season 3, episode 3.
Okay.
3.
Yeah. Okay.
He discovers his former teacher's skeleton. Sorry, I'm not going to talk about later seasons. I meant episode 3. And he goes into the Avatar state, and Katara helps to calm him down, which it's one of the things that makes Katara great is her sort of like caring no matter what. But he does have that moment, and we see that the pressure got to him, which is why he ran away. And then he also has guilt from leaving the world in the lurch for 100 years. But yeah, it's a kid's show that basically brings up genocide in the 3rd episode.
He's a character that has a lot of growing up to do, isn't he, Yang? And he has to do it really quickly. So you do have this sympathy for him instinctively.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that that's probably why, like, I mean, he's a very good character and engaging, but it's probably why I gravitated more towards Katara, at least in this first season, because Aang is just, a little boy. Katara is a bit more grown up, so it feels like, she's, even though at times she doesn't, there's some immature decisions that she makes, but she's more in that range of like understanding the gravity of certain things, and so for a character in this first season, I think I found her more compelling to follow, but I'm interested to see where Aang sort of goes from here as he begins to mature and and has to make harder and harder decisions.
Yeah, there's definitely growth in him, even in this first season. By the time we get to the end, where they're all at the North Pole and the Fire Nation is showing up, like he does not shy away from his destiny of being the Avatar. At that point, at least at that point, he has told himself, "I'm not running again."
And yet he's also still goofing around when he should be training.
Yeah, I was about to say, he still doesn't take his training very seriously. Exactly.
That's true.
When that scene when he makes the snowman and he says, I've learned a new. I haven't mastered water bending yet, but I've learned a new trick. And then he does the thing and turns into a snowman, and everybody's like, make their daft kind of anime astonished faces.
Just as a side note, the animation in this is beautiful, y'all.
Yeah.
Like, and they really strike a great balance between, like the visceral action sequences and the silliness, like you were just pointing out, Dan, the really silly facial expressions and some
the
of
slapstick element. I really like. Actually, it's actually it surprised me because I thought that was gonna be the thing that would keep me not watching. But the more I watched, the more I found myself giggling along with some of the moments that they come up with.
Well, yeah, because it's funny. There's this there's this line that you cross between initially like the things like the some of the goofy facial expressions, the sound effects, the like boing, things like that. At first you're like, oh, I'm not sure about that, but then eventually it sort of worms its way into your heart and you start giggling along with it. So it's sort of like I sort of compare it to, other people may disagree, but like it's going to Clone Wars, it's like at first it's like, oh god, I can't take these battle droids, but then at a certain point you're just giggling along with everything they say. So yeah, sometimes it works that way, but yeah, no, I was similar. I was kind of like, I'm not sure about some of these sort of goofier elements, but I came to sort of love it all.
Right on. It's charming. They don't overdo it, but there are times where really, silly stuff is happening. Like when he does that, is it on Kyoshi Island where he does the, and you just like and the little marble is spinning in the air and the guy starts going, wow, wow, and foaming at the mouth and everything. I'm just like, what is this? But like, it's so funny. It's because I laugh every time at that guy. So Aang has, look, everybody from the first season has at least something of an arc. I think Aang's arc really kicks into high gear in season 2. But it is nice to see him go from basically, I don't even want to tell people I am the Avatar, and I want to try to like shy away from that, to fully owning it and defending people.
He goes through several stages with acceptance of his role, doesn't he? Because early on, they visit that one place where they meet the warrior women who. It's not too much of a spoiler, I hope, to say that they show up later on.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
But they, Ahsoka meets the warrior woman, and Aang is like followed around by the local girls, the local village girls, and it just completely goes to his ego. So he goes through several stages of accepting his role, doesn't he, in this season? And he goes through some very immature ones early on, but that's the pleasure of watching him grow as a character.
Sorry, I just had like a sort of mental link in my head to Aang in that episode. It's kind of like in Harry Potter when Hermione is like, she's only interested in you because she thinks you're the chosen one. He goes, but I am the chosen one. And she smacks him on the head. So kind of that similar type of thing.
Yeah, funny though. So just looking, I'm kind of like, I've got a list of the episodes in front of me, and I'm just thinking about what Aang does. So let me ask you, when they go to Omashu and the king of Omashu puts them through all the various trials to, so he can free his friends, did you figure out who he was?
Yeah, I remembered that I figured it out early on my first run through those episodes. Which is why actually I'm probably going to piss some people off, but like that's actually not particularly one of my favorite episodes because there's not much of an element of surprise there, and it is a pretty goofy episode. Although it does give us Cabbage Guy.
It does give us Cabbage Guy, and it also shows Aang's lateral thinking, which is something like that will continue to be a thing. I mean, airbenders, this philosophy will play out more and more as the show goes on, but airbenders tend to want to think around a problem rather than going headlong through it. They tend to be the most, creative in their solutions.
Well, Boomy says to him, I think, when they're fighting, he says, "Oh, typical airbender tactics. You're just trying to evade my attacks." And I can't remember exactly the line, but he comments something like that, along the lines of what you just said.
Yeah. The single most legendary minor character in existence. You are correct. My cabbages.
I lost it when he showed up in another episode.
Yeah. I think he's in at least one episode per season.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. I was like, please tell me we haven't seen
the last. Well, they have their finger on the pulse of what their fans liked as well. Because this was sort of the dawn of social media takeover when this show was coming out too. So they were paying attention to what people were talking about. Okay. And later seasons will reflect that. But yeah, I'll also say that each of the various styles is based on a different style of Kung Fu. And airbending is based off of a style called Bagua, which translates, I think, to circle walking. And it is a very sort of like evasive style. Which works great for airbenders. Although I will say, in the end, it was not his lateral thinking, but the avatar state combined with the ocean spirit that really laid the smackdown on everybody at the end. Which is cool, but you also see that besides being evasive, he's also extremely spiritual. Now, all the avatars they're the bridge to the spirit world, but airbenders are the most spiritual people to begin with. So his connection with the spirit world is another thing that makes him kind of very, very unique. There was only one other character that we know for sure saw a spirit in the first season. Do you remember who it is?
Uncle Ira.
Yeah.
I picked up on that immediately, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Right? Does he see him on the dragon? Doesn't he? In the spirit two parts. So, right? Yeah.
Matthew, I know you said earlier you did not. You haven't seen this show, so you don't know. The element does not influence personality or vice versa. It is a hereditary thing, and it is a sort of like what's the best way to say this? It's an ethnic thing. Like all the firebenders live in a country, all the earthbenders live in a country, all the waterbenders live in a country. Say that the waterbenders live in a few different places, but like it is a genetic thing, I would say. Like you can be good, evil, or anywhere in between, and be a bender of any element, or not a bender at all. Matter of fact, most people are not benders, but they're still part of the Fire Nation or the Earth Kingdom.
I do want to say, going back to you mentioned when Aang is like sort of taken in by the I guess it's the moon spirit.
No, it's the ocean spirit. The moon spirit was killed.
That's right. Okay, the ocean spirit, and that was very like Princess Mononoke, sort of Miyazaki influence type of thing. And something else that reminded me of Miyazaki was hold on, let me pull up. Still getting used to the names of Appa. He seemed like he could have been pulled from a Miyazaki film. So yeah, I really enjoyed some of those elements, and I want to say, like, yeah, I guess we'll get to this later on, but like, what was so great about those final episodes, you know, like they come in like the third to the last episode, you know, into the northern
Water Tribe.
Water Tribe.
Norton, yeah, and it's just like this tranquil, you know, beautiful place. Oh my god! And the fact that then in the finale, you know, when the Fire Nation comes in, they start like knocking, you know, the ice down and all that. It was just like a major moment, like, holy crap, they're going all in. It felt like it was what I was saying before. It's like, you know, they take the time to build this world and sort of lay in a foundation and also, you know, laying in the stakes. And I was just taken aback by, like, you know, again, kids show, but they were really, you know, going for it and showing the destruction of war so much. I was like, no, don't ruin, you know, the northern, you know, water tribe and all that stuff. So it's just, once again, just brilliant what this show was able to construct to make you, you know, feel the gravity of everything by the end.
It's interesting when we get to the Northern Water Tribe, because it is quite an idyllic sort of place in a way, but it's also quite a slightly kind of regressive culture up there. It's very different to what we might have expected from the Southern Water Tribe and the characters that we've gotten to know, which is another thing which I think is a thematic thing which is not typical in a kids show, is showing different societies and the way that they live, and how that's the lesser of two evils over the expansionist empire that the Fire Nation is. But it really surprised me when I got to the end of season 1 that we got to see something like that.
Yeah, I just have to say that I'm looking up his name right now.
If you tell me who it is, I can tell you what the name is. Describe who
the waterbending master.
His name is Paku.
Paku. He's a dick.
He is
just saying it. Like, and he doesn't even really learn any lesson. He teaches Katara because she's the granddaughter of, you know, the woman he loved. I don't sense the society getting more progressive.
Fair.
I don't sense him getting any more progressive, but maybe that could be a step that would lead them in a different direction in the future.
Yeah.
Well, and also the fact that the real hero here is Yue. The real hero of that battle is Yue. Oh, maybe it is the moon spirit, because he goes into the avatar state in the big catfish form. Or I guess it's a koi fish, because they're two koi fish, after the moon spirit is revived. So maybe it is the moon spirit that.
I don't know. I mean, I've only seen the episode once, so don't. So I probably am wrong. So.
No, you said water spirit, and I was like, no, or you said moon spirit, and I'm like, no, it's the ocean, but I actually think it is the moon. Because the moon is the first ever waterbender.
Okay.
Yeah. Humans learn to bend water by watching the moon pull the tides. It's kind of a neat bit of lore there. I think they cover that in that season or in that arc. But Yue is the real hero of the battle, because she willingly, like, I have to die now, and there's no other way around it. I am willingly, like, there's 0% chance I survive this. So yeah, she gets my nod as the true hero. Although, like, one of my favorite Iroh moments is right there around the pool as well. Like when he's like threatens Admiral Zhao, and it's like, because he's so chill all the time, but he starts yelling and stuff. We're supposed to be talking about Aang. Dang it! The show is so good. I can just wander and talk about it all. I think we've actually covered Aang pretty well.
But no, like, you know, jumping onto what you were saying, yeah, no, Iroh gets a good moment right there. But honestly, like the whole season, that's why I said he's like the MVP, because, you know, anytime you could find Zuko sort of insufferable with his, like, you know, spoiled prince routine, it's like Iroh's just there taking the piss out
the whole time. But like, he also clearly loves his nephew.
Yeah.
Like, you can dislike Zuko for a lot of reasons, especially in season 1. But like, Iroh loves him regardless.
Yeah, they have a really touching moment together right before Zuko is about to leave the ship in that invasion at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that Iroh is the reason why, like, I don't know that I would say I care about Zuko based off of season 1, but I care about the fact that Iroh cares about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes following his journey compelling just for that reason. And so his journey is interesting, and that's what creates a great sort of imbalance in what you want to happen, because, like, well, the show does a great thing by the fact that you get now who's the the Fire Nation,
bad guy,
Admiral or
Admiral
whatever, Zhao. The fact that you have him set up, he's the Fire Nation guy we really hate. So that Zuko doesn't look as bad in comparison to him. And so, like, we want him to succeed, in one-upping Zhao, but we also don't want him to get Aang.
Right. We don't want him to get Aang.
Right. Yeah.
But okay, you know what? We're talking about Zuko. Let's go on to Zuko. Because he is the inverse parallel of Aang. He's the mirror universe version of him in a lot of ways. I'm not going to be able to articulate this very well, but they both have a long way to go from who they were to who they will become throughout this entire series. And we see, like we did with Aang, we see him starting to take hold of the fact that I am the Avatar and I need to live up to this. Now, he's not great at it yet, but we also see Zuko, like, we understand in that episode of The Storm, we see that he was banished by his father, burned by his father for speaking out to save people's lives. He did what he thought was right, but his father is a sociopath and a megalomaniac. So,
but voiced by Mark Hamill. So.
Voiced by Mark Hamill, who's
like, it's so funny because I did not know he was a voice actor in the show, and then when I saw his name, I was like, that tracks.
Right.
Because Steven loves this show, so I had to assume that Mark Hamill was involved in some capacity.
Honestly, it's got nothing to do with him. I'm glad that he's in it, but like somebody else could have voiced that character, and it would be good still. But it doesn't hurt that it's Mark Hamill. I love that guy.
It's a bit of a different kind of voice for him as well, because a lot of voices he does sound similar to his Joker voice that he's
right.
for. There's a bit of a different voice for him, in my opinion.
I do want to say, I know we're talking about Zuko, but it's because somebody just mentioned the chat, Uncle Iroh, voiced by Mako, I think is how you...
Mako Iwatsu?
Yeah. Just what a legendary voice and a legendary actor. I mean, I grew up on the Conan movies, and just him, just, you know, the opening narration of those movies. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure. You know, it's just, I get chills whenever I hear his voice. So, you know, it definitely helped endear me to Uncle Iroh immediately.
Well, and it's through Iroh that we get that lens of Zuko. So as you say, and of course they're together. They share a lot of screen time. So we're going to think of them as a unit. But he's always got a word of wisdom. He's never in a hurry. You know, all he wants is his tea and his roast duck and his sungi horn, and he's happy. You know,
and he wants to take a break in the spa. Just, I love that he falls asleep. Like, Zuko's like, you have half an hour. Like, no, I'm just going to doze off instead.
But, and Zuko clearly loves Iroh as well. I mean, as I say, they've set Iroh up that we as watchers really like him, because he's not this driven conqueror. Like, he would be home playing Pai Sho, except he needs to be there for Zuko because Zuko doesn't have anyone else. Like, Iroh is not banished. Zuko is banished. Iroh is just hanging out.
And he's doing it at the expense of his own reputation a bit as well, Iroh, because he's a legend in his own country.
He is.
But whenever he seems to interact with military people, he's viewed as this sort of joke, which he's definitely not. I think what you commented on, what you touched on with Iroh having this sort of casual sense of joy, there's similarities there with him and Aang in a way. You know, the way they set up Aang at the start of the show, and Katara says he's bringing us something that we've been lacking, fun, you know. And
I hadn't drawn that connection, Dan. That's really good. Yeah, that's. But
it's Katara calls it wisdom. She says Aang is. There's a wisdom in him. He's got a lot to learn, but there's a wisdom in him because he has fun and he enjoys his life. And that's exactly what Iroh does as well.
Oh, yeah. And we actually see a little bit of Iroh's like badassness too, especially. I mean, you don't get a whole lot of it in season 1, but just enough to go, oh, if this guy went off, it could be bad. I think especially in...
There's a moment when he escapes from some earthbenders, I remember.
And also in the episode called The Deserter, where Aang tries to learn a little bit of firebending from Zhong. So yeah, Iroh's just got a great character, man, and it's because he's what everybody wants their grandpa to be. Like, literally, everybody wishes Iroh was their grandpa, because he always has the right thing to say, and he has never, like, he is there for Zuko no matter what. Even when he's like going off and Iroh's trying to tell him, look, man, calm down. Chasing the Avatar isn't going to get you what you want. Zuko says, you know, what would you know? You're a washed up has-been anyway. And he takes it and he stays there. because he knows Zuko needs him. Like, that's dedication, my friend.
Yeah, and I was really impacted by you know, I might keep referencing the episode The Storm because it really was one of my favorite
One of the best
episodes. Yeah. Just the way he goes to the men, you know, and relays this story, and he's opening their eyes to seeing Zuko in a different way, and it's just like, man, he's like there's some similarities in sort of I see him in Davos as kindred spirits. It's like you want one of them in your corner.
You really do.
He's like the ultimate PR guy for you. And both characters share sort of, you know, that grandfatherly type of, you know, in Game of Thrones, Davos has that with Shireen, and you know, and so there's some similarities there. But yeah, as far as like having your back and letting people, you know what you're really about, and yeah, he's great. And like I said, he really is sort of the MVP because of the way that he, you know, sort of warms the audience to Zuko's story.
Right. He appears to be a side character, but he does so much work.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Dan? Iro, anything to say?
I haven't got a whole lot to add other than what I've said, really. Yeah, I really enjoyed the character as well. Obviously, I appreciate his love of tea as well, being an Englishman. So, love that.
Right.
But I don't really have a lot to add other than, yeah, he's great fun, and like you guys have been saying, he invests us emotionally in Zuko's story before Zuko does.
Well, and he is the lens through which we can see Zuko as not being just a terrible person who's hunting our hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more I want to say about it, but I can't do it without spoiling.
Yeah,
like
Dan, if you really want, I'll have you back for the next two, you know, for season 2 and 3. I love this show, and John, now that you're in it, like, you're going to finish. I know you will. It's just about getting hooked.
Yeah, it's the question of whether I'm gonna wait for the discussions or if I'm gonna or if I end up blowing through the series. But
like it won't. You'll want to go back, but you know.
Yeah, but part of me wants to also like soak it in. I don't want to be done with this show in a couple weeks. I'd like to kind of live with it for a little bit. So. So in that, it's sort of like the way I honestly did The Expanse with you guys, Stephen. That allowed me to really soak in the show over a more expanded length of time.
Yeah. You know what? Let's hit mid-roll. We're here. We're kind of at a decent stopping spot, and we'll come back and we'll talk about your favorite character.
I honestly can't believe we've been going for an hour already.
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so mid-roll, meaning we're only halfway done. Don't go anywhere. But if you would be so kind to, you know, hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't. I think probably everyone here is already subscribed, but, you know, do the thing. Come back to Here Be Dragons next week, where we will be talking about Season 7 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars animated series. Wrapping up the final season. It's gonna be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Which is it's so great that we're talking about this the show where Filoni really got his in his start, as far as I know. I don't know what he was doing.
I'm pretty sure it is.
And then to next week we're going to jump to Clone Wars, which is kind of like, especially the final arc of that season, which is basically, it's a movie. It's just split up into 4 episodes. That's sort of like, I think his magnum opus. especially within animation, and I honestly overall at this point. So it's sort of great to see, beginning Filoni, and then what he was able to achieve by the very end of Clone Wars. So it's going to be great to talk about that with you guys. The only regret I have is that we're not all in the same place, so I can't sit down and watch those final episodes with you guys.
Yeah.
That would be so great.
I'm sorry. Potter said something in the chat that I can't decipher, but we'll figure that out later. So yeah, next week, season 7, Clone Wars. John, you've got something coming up soon?
Yeah, I want to say, first of all, since we have Dan here, if anybody hasn't gone to watch it yet, Dan just put up a wonderfully fun chat he and I had talking about the differences in the adaptation of the Lord of the Rings films versus the books. I had so much fun talking about with you, Dan. So please, everybody, go check that out. Also, the last stream I did was on one of my absolute top 3 films of all time, Amadeus. If you guys haven't watched that yet, please go check it out. I did that wonderful chat with Alicia Kingston, Shakes of Thrones, and my wonderful friend Laura. So please go watch that. Coming up next on let me look at the dates. Not this weekend, but next weekend on the 14th at 7 p.m. I'm having Hannah from the Game of Owns podcast on my channel. This will be her second time on. She was previously on for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. We're going to be talking about the 2016 film La La Land. So please come check it out.
Right on, right on. Dan, what do you got going on?
Well, for the third time in this stream, I'll have to mention that I've just released a podcast with John. I don't need to explain that too much. John's just plugged it. I've got the next part of the Silmarillion Explained series coming out next week, which is the second half of Chapter 15. So the kind of the ruling that Thingol makes after he finds out what's been going on in Amon. So the continuation of that storyline. I'm working on kind of guests and bits and pieces in the future, but I guess the next thing after that will probably be the Numenor playlist. Will be continuing with the story of Aldarion and Arendis, so that'll be the week after or the week after that, just to give people a rough idea of what I'm working on. But yeah, that's about it for me, really.
Nice. Yeah, go check out his Silmarillion videos. We made a deal, I don't know, a year ago, that when Glaurung finally appears in the story, I'm gonna voice an actual dragon. It's gonna be awesome.
It has to be. I mean, this is Here Be Dragons, so it has to be the dragon. And I've heard your dragon voice before, which I think it'll work well.
I do all right. I'm gonna send you a couple different readings of it, and you can decide which one you like.
Sounds good.
But yeah, so John's got a live stream in a couple of weeks. We've got Clone Wars next week. Dan's got more Silmarillion stuff coming soon. And do check out that conversation they had about the difference between the books and the movies. It's really good.
Yeah, and I really did have so much fun having that conversation, because I think we both learned things and saw things from a different perspective in a really good way. So it's good.
Yeah, we haven't had a moment that reminded me of my discussions with, that I have with Steven, where you and I actually disagreed on something, and we were just like, okay, we disagree.
Yeah,
it'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Gotta make sure to shout out my patrons. Our Patreon High Council consists of course, our alpha patron, this dude right here, Ridiculous Ed Tollett, our first ever patron. We love you, man. Also, we have Lord John Bronsteen the Wise, Sixto Sounds, aka JPVX Grinder, and moving up in the world, we have Lady Leaf Underhill joining the High Council of Patrons. The lords and ladies of the realm who shall attend them are Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, and Reflective Rambling. Thank you, patrons. We love you. If you want links to any of our stuff, all of the Twitter links are down in the description. Dan, I put your YouTube channel as well as your Facebook group link in the description as well. Your
Perfect.
Facebook group is popping off, managed by the lovely Jaded Redhead. This one right here.
Yeah. Massive shout out to Kelly for doing that as
Yeah,
well.
Kelly,
done some awesome stuff, and I'm really grateful.
A rock star, a pillar of the community. We freaking love you, Kelly.
Wait a second. Who's Kelly?
Jaded.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. She goes by Kelly, but her real name is Jaded.
Peadar, I can't disprove this. I really can't. I find it hard to believe, but you know what? Who knows?
That's funny. That's a good one. That's some top tier trolling there, Potter. I think that's it for the mid roll, right? I think so.
Yeah, we're getting closer to Herbitron.
Yeah, but it's too late for anybody to join. If you have not talked to me by now, it's too late.
I know, but we can still hype it. I'm so excited.
Pat, yes, you can come for season 2. I know you are a huge fan. We did sort of like a fandom focus on Avatar where we very broadly touched on the whole series. But yeah, absolutely, you can come for season 2.
Which, by the way, I'm really happy because I actually watched that from. I'm trying to remember when that was.
That was a long time ago.
Was that before I actually joined?
I couldn't even tell you for sure.
But I remember I was in the chat and I was kind of worried about listening because, spoiler phobe. But thankfully, I remember nothing of that conversation. So I didn't even have to worry about it.
Well, good. Nothing got spoiled for you then.
Nope.
I just want to say hi, Mohammed. I haven't seen you in forever, my man. Welcome back. It's been a while. It's very nice to see you again. But that's the mid-roll. Katara. Why is Katara your favorite character? Dan, you're the guest. You go first.
I think in this season
1.
Yeah, that was the question, was who was your favorite character in this season? I think in this season, she's the character that I relate to the most because she's the most grown up, really.
Okay.
Because Aang is very childish in season 1. And, no, as you said earlier, she does make immature decisions as well. But I think, from day to day, she's the one who I relate to. And of course, she's on a journey to learn about waterbending, which she takes very seriously and is really interesting in season 1. She has, I think, the best arc in that sense.
And she's clearly extremely talented. She's just never been trained.
No, there's no one there in her home tribe to do that.
Yeah. But all the way down to in the early season when she wants to freeze the guys, she literally turns her back to them so that she can get the freeze to go the way she wants. Whereas by the end of the season, she's fighting Paku.
If I had to sum up why she was my favorite character this season, it's this isn't really why, but this is evidence of it. When we got to that moment where she's fighting, I was kick his ass. I was so into her character and cheering her on, and so I think I was the most emotionally invested in her character because she does have the best character arc of the season, I think, and like I said, the season starts off with her. It's sort of from her point of view, and she is the most mature, as you say, Dan, and just the fact that their destination is the the Northern Water Tribe to learn from a waterbending master. It's yes, Aang has to learn that as well, but she's the one who's the waterbender, and so it feels like it's as much her journey as even more so than Aang's, and so once they get there and she starts really like even for that fight she hasn't been taking lessons from him, but so that's her talent that she's built up, and the fact that she's that good, and then once she does start training with Paku, and then to watch her in action against Zuko, and it's like, yeah, boy, you don't know what you're up against at this point, and it's just like it's so rewarding to watch her character journey, and yeah, and she's also, just for me, was the most sort of likable character over the course of the season. So yeah, I found it really just a lot of fun to watch her, and yeah, Amy just mentioned becoming the badass waterbender she's always meant to be. It's very rewarding when you see that for a character who fully realizes their potential.
Yeah, and she gets there by basically doing a very un-Qatar thing and stealing the waterbending scroll so she can study the forms, and then she trains with Aang. But Katara is not a I'm going to steal stuff type. Really, none of them are. But Sokka is probably the most likely, I would think. And he's the one who's most upset by it. It just goes to show you that, like...
I do consider myself lawful good, but even I kind of agree with the whole... Can you really steal from pirates?
Right, exactly. I mean, like Steven says so at the end of the episode. Don't steal unless it's from pirates.
Yeah,
that does make sense.
Their whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, good. And as much of an arc as she has, she's also there to fulfill a role in the group of being the one that. I mean, she's the mom. She's the group mom.
By the way, I do want to mention, like, I'm sporting my blue colors, like, for both the Water Tribe, but also for Katara being my favorite character.
So that's a good question. Do you feel you're a waterbender?
Yeah, I feel like, with the exception of their sort of the Northern Tribe sort of closed-mindedness, I do find that they're probably my favorite. I mean, that's what the whole season was kind of based around. We saw the other tribes, but like the whole point was getting to the Northern Water Tribe, and and the season is like, I noticed each season has like a name, and the season was water, and so so I don't think that it's really shocked that I sort of gravitated towards them for the season. But also, like I said, Katara is my favorite character, so just the fact that she's a waterbender, and it's
waterbending is very cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan?
I definitely think I'm a firebender, probably, because I I'm a passionate kind of person, and yeah, there's maybe some rage issues that I have sometimes that leads me to think maybe I'd make a good firebender, or maybe a bad one.
I can't wait for season 3 so we can talk more about that.
Yeah. But, does Aang have his experience where he starts trying to learn firebending in this season?
He does. He does have one sort of like set day session with Zhong.
That's right.
Where it's like he tells him to squat and breathe and like make the leaves smolder but don't burn out. And he accidentally, like, it's a huge moment because he does accidentally burn Katara.
Which right there tells you why I'm not on board with fire. Damn it, Fire! You hurt my favorite character. What the hell?
I mean, I get it, but like it is also so that she can discover that she can heal.
Yeah. Which I loved Sokka at the end of the episode. It's like, hey, thanks for healing me all those times over the years.
Yeah, so it's a big episode for Aang and for Katara, because Aang comes out of that episode saying, "I'm never going to firebend again."
Yeah.
Um,
Which I'm betting that's not going to hold eventually, since that's kind of something that he has to do. But yeah, I won't ask for any comment on that since I'll just have to see for myself.
Yeah, but like,
I really want to say stuff about that, but no.
yeah, like, not all firebending is just burning things to the ground. I'll just say that. I mean, you use fire to cook your food, like it's light and it's warmth anyway. But it can also.
Well, that's the whole thing in the world as well. I mean, the Fire Nation has taken over everything, so everything's out of balance. So that's why firebending has become this kind of like destructive thing, because they're a military expansionist force.
For the record, I'm an airbender. Like that's me if I just shave my head.
Okay. So underneath all that hair, you've got a blue arrow.
I do. Well, like, I'm pretty tan right now, but you can see it when in the wintertime. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Although, honestly, the first cosplay I ever did was Sokka. And I literally had like my hair shaved way up to here and had it pulled. Back then, my hair was still pretty brown. It's gone very, very gray at this point. But back then, it was still pretty dark, because this was 2012, maybe.
I just want to say yes, Cassie.
This is John's first time watching, and he's also only seen season 1. So, like, John, don't pay too close of attention to the chat, because there is a little bit of spoilery talk in the chat for stuff that's coming, but
okay.
But yeah, I'm an airbender, and I love it. Although I think my favorite visually is some of the later seasons earthbending stuff is my favorite to watch, I think. But from a sort of like the philosophy is I'm an airbender. What can I say?
Yeah, the earthbending animation is really well done. It's it really helps season 2, I think, visually.
Matthew, I don't want to see that, not even a little bit.
You weren't gonna buzz your head, Stephen.
I was thinking about getting my hair cut because I work outside and it's hot, but like I got dressed and was literally like about to go to the barber shop to get it cut, and I started having a panic attack. So I'm like, maybe I'm not doing this. So
I will say, like, the first time, because at a certain point, my hair started thinning. I was like, maybe I should just go ahead and buzz it off, see how I like it. And I will say, like, for about like the first year or so that I was doing that, it was freaking me out, like, every time I did it. And I was extremely, like, self-conscious about it. And now I'm just used to it. And since you all don't know me from when I had a full head of hair, you guys don't seem to care that much. So I but the thing is, it's a big change. And I will say, like, as far as you doing it, Stephen, don't do anything.
Are we talking about me cutting my hair still?
Yeah, I'm just
about
saying,
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I'm just saying, don't do anything that makes you unhappy, Steve.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you for that, John. What else about Katara? Now this book is called Water. Season 1 is book 1, Water, because this is where Aang really gets to learn water bending. He spends this season getting very proficient at it. And it's
he's not quite mastered it by the end of the season.
No,
though,
not
has he?
quite. But
Yeah,
he is very proficient.
It's very interesting that like as things kind of start off once he starts training with Katara, when she shows him what she knows, it becomes evident that he has like just amazing natural ability, but yet by the end of the season she's the one who's who's great at it, and he's sort of falling behind because he lacks the discipline and all that. So it's very interesting how they did that. It was like I felt for Katara when he started just doing all the stuff really easily, and she was like,
well, it helps that he has 1,000 previous lives who have all figured it out before.
Yeah.
And some of them were some of the best ever. Like, I'm really glad too, because you get a little bit of this guy in season 1, Avatar Roku.
Which I feel like, okay, well, I do want to say, like, a while back I bought the complete series on Blu-ray because there was a great deal for it, physical media. But I did feel like I was kind of, just not doing the right thing on this occasion, even though I did go ahead and watch the Blu-rays, but I really thought it was a lost opportunity to watch the show on my Roku device.
Right. It is what it is. But that's another sort of like window into not all firebenders are just evil.
Yeah.
Like, because we see Roku is...
Well, there's a cycle of avatars as well, isn't there? Sorry to interrupt. There's a cycle of avatars as well. So a quarter of all the avatars ever have been natural firebenders.
Right.
Like,
yeah, and Aang's literal direct predecessor, and who is therefore the one he's closest to, is Roku, and it is from him that he learns about the spirit world stuff, and even one of his priests in the modern day is working to help Aang get the information he needs.
Yeah, I really liked those moments when we got to see people of the Fire Nation who were not just villains, because the majority of Fire Nation people that we see over the course of the season are just military bad guys, so it was nice to see that there's more to the Fire Nation than just that.
Indeed.
that's going to become a theme.
Not
to spoil things too much, but that's a big thing.
It's just nice that even in this first season, we've got Iroh, we've got Roku, and we've got Zhong, all of whom serve as firebenders who are not terrible people. Which, a lot of times it's good guy, bad guy, and this show is never that. Even down to like Sokka saves the Fire Nation guy when Jet and his crew want to send to wipe out their village by blowing up the dam. But
yeah, that was the episode when I kind of stopped being completely annoyed with Sokka. I was like, okay, he's got some promise.
Sokka is way smarter than he's given credit for, especially in season 1. Just you wait, my friend. Like, he's ridiculous, and he's snarky, and he's quick with a joke, but
he's quite cynical, isn't he, in season 1? I when I was rewatching earlier, I'd forgotten how kind of like pessimistic he is, and because he becomes quite a sort of paragon of hope and courage, really, in the end, in many ways, I feel. But season 1 Sokka is very, very miserable all the time, really.
I mean, he can be. Again, it's development. He's given that sort of like, I'm a casual misogynist, so that he can, but it's so that he can be proven wrong and learn from it. And it's pretty early in the season when it happens. And I'll have you notice that from that point on, he is never slanderous to a woman again, not once. You know, he learns the lesson and he takes it on board. We're
just take a few ass kickings first.
Right. But here's the other thing about Stavka that maybe that he doesn't get enough credit for on the first watch. He is brave. He is extremely brave. He's standing out with a spear to defend against an entire ship full of Fire Nation guys in the first episode? Maybe it's the second episode. I can't remember. But and he keeps attacking. Zuko breaks his spear easily and knocks him into the snow, but he comes back for more. Sokka is extremely loyal to his family, and he is extremely brave because he is not a bender. He's just a guy with a spear or a boomerang or a club, but he gets back in there every time, and he figures things out. You know. You'll see more of that, like his intelligence later on and his creativity, but it's easy to dismiss him because he is written as the comic relief character.
He's funny as well. I find him amusing. He's witty in quite a sort of blunt way sometimes, but
yeah, he's my favorite character, at least in season 1. Just because he's the guy without special powers. He's the guy in over his head all the time, and yet he's still out there trying to make it happen and not shying away from it.
There's a little bit of a sort of tabletop RPG feeling to the ensemble cast of the little party, like going about their adventures, isn't there? And he's got his own skill set, basically, you know. I don't know quite how to like categorize that in a class. Maybe he's the rogue of the party, but I don't know.
Guilty Undertaker is right. When they're at the Northern Air Temple where the people have built gliders and stuff, Sokka he comes up with the battle plan. He figures out how to find where the leaks for the gas are and how to weaponize it. And
that's a great point.
So, and we'll see more of that as it goes on.
Otherwise known as the episode where Odo messes up the temple.
Yep.
Yeah, when I heard that voice the first time, I had no idea that Rene Aubergenois?
Rene Aubergenois.
Aubergenois, yeah. No idea that he was going to be in it. So as soon as I heard that voice, I was
yeah, it's unmistakable, isn't it?
Yeah. I probably had the same moment hearing that voice that you had hearing Mark Hamill, actually.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I agree. It's good. It's good stuff, and it's such a silly character on some levels too, but kind of tragic. So, yeah. Have we touched on every major character now? I assume you guys don't really have much more to say about Sokka directly.
I'll just say, like, my impression of him was kind of like, just because of the way it starts off, you know, he's obviously, you know, in the very beginning, he's a bit sexist. You know, Katara even calls him out on that. He's sort of, you know, initially antagonistic towards Aang, you know, not wanting him there. And so he's not a character I instantly warmed up to, but he does have some very interesting development over the course of the season. And especially the episode with Jet. And, you know, I really loved, you know, him in that. And then, you know, his development through the finale and, you know, and seeing all that. So I have no doubt that I'll probably come to really like his I like it. I don't want it to sound like I don't like his character.
Right.
I do, but I'll
he's
probably
just not up there. He's just not up there.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him my favorite character. So
I get it. Like, as long as you're not bad mouthing Sokka, we'll be fine.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, he's definitely like he's got a role to play in the group. And Dan, you're right. Like, they've got the cleric, they've got the fighter, they've got the rogue. I think, I mean, Katara's certainly the cleric. She's the one with the healing.
Yeah.
But just personality-wise, I feel like Aang is a rogue, but he's like a, you know, he's a trickster. You know, he's the one who's always thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I think he's the character that doesn't really fit a class dynamic. I mean, he's kind of, unless he's an archmage or something, I don't know, but he's maybe not that power level. Yeah, I don't know, but there is a feeling of like kind of like an adventurer group setting out in the world, seeing what they can find, but then having a campaign storyline in the background too.
Yeah,
Aang is the monk. Yeah, no, that's fair.
and whereas Sokka
he's literally a monk. So
yeah, Sokka's the fighter, but he's specifically the battlemaster fighter, battlemaster subclass, using his maneuvers. Anyway. So some people are bringing up characters that will become back into play later or haven't been introduced yet. Season 2 introduces actually a good handful of new characters that will become as important as everybody we've talked about so far.
Well, even the very tail end of the season finale introduces Zuko's sister.
Azula.
So I'm interested to see, you know, what her deal is.
Yeah. You're not going to be disappointed. Azula, great character. But she's one of the handful that is really introduced, and we are shown who they are in season 2. Don't really want to spoil anything, but my favorite character has not appeared on the show yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll just leave it at that. Season 2, my man. Season 2.
One character we haven't really talked about really is Oppa as well, because I would say that he's worth spending a few minutes on. Yeah, because I personally think he's sentient. I think he's as much a character as anybody else in the show.
Oh yeah, and he is also voiced by D. Bradley Baker.
Yep. Him and Momo are both D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah, which I always crack up because I always see D. Bradley Baker doing all these, like, you know, creature voices and stuff across various different shows, and like the guy is so sort of multi-talented and in the range of stuff that he can do, because obviously, I mean, I think of him instantly as, you know, the clone troopers in Star Wars, but yeah, it's great. I love whenever I see his name pop up, because he's also Klaus on American Dad, which I just find really funny. But yeah, no, it's great, and Oppo is great because, like I said, that felt like something that would pop up in a Hayao Miyazaki film, and yeah, it's so yeah, and I love the fact that the the whistle actually does work to bring him.
I just wanted to say hi, Grateful Green. I don't recognize the name, but welcome to the live stream. And we did spend a pretty good amount of time talking about Iroh already, and we all definitely agree. Uncle Iroh is pretty much the best. Love that character. I was looking. So one thing we didn't touch on was there's an episode called The Blue Spirit, where you see Aang and Zuko actually working together, although he has no idea that it's Zuko in the moment.
Which, by the way, I mean, I guess that it was Zuko, but for me, that actually made it all the more interesting because I knew it was him behind the mask right away, and so I found that really interesting because I could see that, based on things that I've heard, I think I have an idea of where the character ends up, going maybe. But it was nice to see that started to layer in some complexity to their relationship. The fact that they have to fight together throughout the course of this episode. And I loved that moment near the end where Aang's just asking him, back then, could we have been friends, do you think? Right before Zuko,
shoots punch fire at you. But what a moment, because you can see Zuko at least absorbing what he's being told in that moment too. It would. I love that episode. It comes right after the Storm episode too, where we've just gotten so much development for both of them, and then we get this really heavy sort of drama between the two of them, and visually beautiful. The still walking on the ladders to make it out, and they still don't make it. And then
I think those are probably, for me, like the two strongest episodes for Zuko, overall over the course of the season, because we really just get to see the depth of that character, and it started to make it really interesting for me to watch, his story, not just because Uncle Iroh was making it entertaining, but also because I started to sense that there's much more going on with Zuko than you might initially think.
Mm-hmm. It's really well executed. It's really well placed in the progression of the story.
Yeah.
I don't think you're supposed to be shocked that it was him behind the mask. I think I definitely figured it out straight away as well who it was behind the mask.
Yeah, but
I don't know if every kid would, but yeah. But yeah, there's a sort of dramatic irony in that whole episode. It's really cool.
Yeah, a 10-year-old might not have figured it out, but they don't. It's not like a huge plot twist, but it is.
I will tell you the one thing that caught me off guard that I thought that it shouldn't have, because they sort of set it up, was the reveal that that Paku was the one who was supposed to marry and Katara's grandmother. Like that reveal actually completely took me off guard, and I really liked that moment. But then in retrospect, I was like, maybe I should have seen that coming.
I don't think so. That's pretty out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, like I still say, like, even though I'm glad that then he decides to go ahead and teach her, he's still a dick.
Yeah.
Just want to go on record to say.
It is what it is. Like, I don't think you're going to hurt too many people's feelings by saying Paku's not your favorite.
I do like the interplay between, once he makes that decision, I do think there's some fun character interplay between him and Katara, but still, I do not approve.
There will be more characters you don't approve of as the series goes on. I'm looking forward to it. Zhao was really well placed as the season 1 main villain.
Voiced by Jason Isaacs, by the way. Who actually, I wouldn't have guessed that, because he did something different with his voice. He didn't quite sound like his usual self, but he also voiced the Emperor in Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. And he's done plenty of other things. I mean, I think most people know him. Most people now know him as from Harry Potter.
Lucius Malfoy.
Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah.
But my memory of him goes back to The Patriot, where he played the
English,
the stereotypical, evil English soldier.
An enemy spy is saying he was amazing in The Death of Stalin. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent in that movie.
Which, by the way, where's the Blu-ray of that movie? Sorry. Getting sidetracked.
John sidetracked by Blu-ray?
Seriously, if any of you guys haven't seen The Death of Stalin, it's really good.
I haven't. Maybe I'll check it out. So we got about 20 minutes left in the stream. Let's throw it to the chat. I know not everybody was here at the beginning. I think we've covered most of the major major characters and major plot lines of season 1. Is there something either one of you want to make sure we talk about, or anybody in the chat?
I want to comment. You guys talked briefly about it. Like, the animation is really good. Because and surprise, I'm going to be talking about video formats and stuff like that again. But like, to get technical, this show wasn't finished in high definition. So the Blu-rays that I watched are actually, it's what's referred to as they're up converted from like the standard definition that you would normally see on a format like DVD. And so it's not perfect. It still looks pretty good, but the thing is, the quality of the animation is so good that after a while you're like, don't even care. It's just a pleasure to watch because it's so well animated.
And like, they're kung fu fighting scenes that are really fluid, because bending isn't just point fire. It's like there is a full-on martial arts maneuver that happens and then fire.
Yeah.
And it's really beautifully animated, and they were very fortunate to have Sifu Kisu, who was like, came in all the time and would do these martial arts maneuvers, and then they would send those to the animators, and the animators would have that visual reference of a true kung fu master performing various martial arts sequences that they could use as reference for their animation.
If I have one criticism of the animation, it's maybe the way that they sometimes blend the 3D and 2D elements in a way that kind of maybe like breaks the fourth wall, or breaks my sense of immersion a little, because it seems to on the nose CGI moment, and then you're back in 2D again. If that makes any sense.
I find there's sometimes a disconnect between the actual animation and the sort of like background art. That is occasionally a thing that will happen. Like the quality, the background will look painted, whereas the foreground stuff will look cel shaded.
Yeah, I will say that this, you kind of saw this in like late 90s or early 2000 animation when they were first starting to use CGI in animation, where they were showing off what they could do with CGI, and they weren't blending it as well as they are nowadays. I didn't find it too distracting. I've seen some stuff from like late 90s. There's a Batman, like a film from Batman the Animated Series, not Mask of the Phantasm. It's the one that came after, I think, like the one that had Mr. Freeze in it or something. There's a lot of CG stuff in that one where you could tell they were showing off, just like, oh hey, we can do CGI now, and there is such a disconnect in that one between the CGI elements and traditional animation. I feel like it's much far better in this show than in that, because this was about like 5 or 6 years later. But yeah, I can see that. It's just one of those things that evolved as as the years went on.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, it's not awful, but it's I think it has aged a little.
A little. The animation is better in season 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's very good in season 1. I just now noticed your icon, your avatar here, Grateful Greens. It's really fantastic. John, show your hat real quick. Yeah. So Lord of the Rings lover there, and Dan makes Voice of Geekdom does Tolkien content as well.
Which, by the way, I want to say whatever anybody wants to say about the Hobbit films, like Martin Freeman was absolutely perfect as the younger Bilbo. I mean, yeah, one of the best parts of any of those movies.
Yeah, agreed. Like, I am not a fan of those movies, but Martin Freeman,
he's exactly the actor that I wanted for that role.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about who would make a good young Bilbo, in the years between Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit many times, and he's exactly the actor that I thought of. So I was very happy when he was cast in that role.
Yeah, I am gonna drag this back to Avatar though, because we're coming to the end. I just want to make sure that everybody has a chance to talk about everything.
Yeah, like, God, who are we been leaving out? I don't know if we're leaving out any characters.
I can't think of any like major characters. There's a handful of minor characters, some of whom will come back in later seasons. They do not forget the people they've met.
That's actually really good, because, and this goes back to kind of something that, Stephen, when we get to Star Wars Rebels, keep in mind, there's sometimes episodes in shows like these where, you think that you're seeing something that's much more standalone and unconnected than it is. I know in Rebels, there's lots of stuff, especially in season 1, where it seems like, okay, this is just a filler episode or whatever, but actually you're meeting characters or introducing scenarios that are important later on. And so it's nice to hear that characters that we've met throughout the season will actually come back, because that kind of lessens that feeling of, these are just a lot of these episodes are one-offs, that they do have importance.
Yep. And some will only come back for maybe one episode. Others will come back and be a much more integral part of the whole story. Not every character comes back, but a lot of them do. I would say even maybe a majority of them feel like they do. Even the Cabbage Man.
Especially him.
Now, once again, I really want to heap praise upon especially those last 3 episodes, because like as soon as they started entering the Northern Water Tribe, I was like, this feels big, and especially that 2-part finale, I was like, holy shit, it's just it was epic in scale, but also in like everything with the characters felt like it had been building to that, and so when you've got moments like with Katara fighting with Zuko, and like that's like, it's just like a whole season's worth of development paying off, and just the stakes of everything. It felt really big in in the way that I don't know if I want to say I hoped it would, because I don't know what my expectations actually were, but I just remember this feeling like very early on in the season, like, is this just going to be kind of a fun show with sort of week to week adventures? But it's, by the end, it really felt like it was building into something that had such a rich tapestry.
And not just like a single episode might feel kind of detached, but later episodes are always remembering the places they've been, the things they've learned. Referencing things like, remember when you stole the waterbending scroll from the pirates?
Yeah.
It's just, it has a sense of its own progression. And that only becomes more true as the series continues.
Yeah, I was really gratified on certain episodes, like when, you'd come off of a like sort of pivotal episode, and the next episode was like they were still discussing that thing that happened in the last episode. So it did feel like it had a great progression of story, as opposed to, oh, it's a whole new week. We're just talking about this thing for this week.
Okay, so I've got a question then, John. Book 2, Earth. What do you think is going to happen? Any predictions?
I mean, because this whole season was built around getting to the Northern Water Tribe, not entirely. I do expect, given that the next one's called Earth, that Anya is going to go off to be learning earthbending, but I'm also curious about where does this season kind of leave him in terms of learning waterbending, because he has to master everything. Qatar, oh, sorry, it's coming back to me now. Sorry, only watched it once, so give my brain time to pick up. But they do mention that Qatar is going to be his waterbending master. So okay, so I'm looking forward to that as well. I know that they're going to be moving towards him mastering earth bending in the second season, but they also have to address, him continuing to learning water bending. And so that'll be interesting to see, especially with Qatar as his teacher for that. What do I hope for her? That's interesting, because like, she got to where she wanted to go in the season. So now she's, sort of her role is in, she's there for Aang to help him. So as far as for herself, I mean, this is this isn't like insightful character stuff, but I just hope she continues to kick ass, honestly. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm just really interested to see where she goes and what's in store for her character and whose ass she gets to kick. But yeah, and also interested to see what comes as a result of Zuko's sister entering the picture, and what does that do for Zuko, and I'm interested now to see what the journey is that he goes on, because now, he's not just an annoyance to, the Fire Nation. As his father says at the very end, he's a failure. Iroh is a traitor. So now that creates a much different dynamic for them. Does he still think capturing the Avatar will fix everything?
All good questions. All things that I think will be touched on in season 2. So you're going to get what you're asking for. I don't know that it's going to pan out in the way you think it will, but you're going to get a lot of what you're asking for here.
Okay. And one thing you didn't touch on, we're going to learn a lot more about the Earth Nation as well, which we don't really learn a lot about in the first season.
Yeah,
but that's an interesting
here and there briefly. They go to Omachu. They go to Kyoki Island. But
yeah, there is a bit, but there's not loads. And
by the way, we didn't touch on that episode. Actually, I thought it was one of the more impressive early episodes where we do see earthbenders, the ones who have been imprisoned, and Katara actually it convinces them to stand up and fight, and I thought that was a really good episode and some great character development for her. And so
who did the voice of the guy who was in charge of the prisoners in that episode?
That was George Takei.
Yeah, I recognize.
He's the Fire Nation guy, but I'm talking about the guy in the prison yard.
Like the Earth Nation guy?
Yeah, he's
I don't know
somebody well known, but yes.
Hold on, I gotta put some respect on. Barristan Selmy has appeared in the chat. I don't guess I know who you are, other than I know who Arston White Bread. Great name, by the way. Just caught it. That's really great. Welcome to the stream. We are just wrapping up here, but I hope you go and watch it. And we talk nerdy stuff all the time, so come back and watch some of that too. Where are we? Sorry. The imprisoned episode. I'm looking to see if I can find who that is. Not easily anyway. No, it's not on this page.
Yeah,
so
we'll look it up later. This is not good content, looking up stuff on Wikipedia.
Yeah. If you want to know bad enough, you can Google it. But anything else? That is we don't get a whole lot of earthbending. We see a lot of airbending from Aang, a lot of waterbending from Katara, and a lot of firebending because they're facing against firebenders. And we also spend enough time in the North Pole to see, a good bit of that waterbending as well. We don't get a lot of earthbending. Season 2, we get a lot of earthbending, and it's my favorite to watch. It's so cool, particularly when one specific character doesn't. But I'm looking forward to broadening the horizons, to adding some really great additional characters.
I will say, you asked me earlier about what I'd consider myself, waterbender. I think also what I like about the waterbending is just because it's inherently sort of the most elegant of the bending, just because it deals, with water, and so everything's very fluid.
Based on Tai Chi, by the way.
Yeah, and so I think just from a aesthetic point of view, I like it in that way. But it'll be interesting to see things switch gears and focus on, another kind of bending for season 2.
Right on.
But once again, I'll just get in really quick that I'm glad I am finally watching the show. I knew this was going to be the way to do it, to be able to break it down season by season so that I could rather than trying to tackle the whole thing. So thank you, Steve.
It's too much to tackle in one. It really is. We did a 2-hour conversation where we tried to talk about the whole thing, and there are some characters that I literally said 2 sentences about, and that was it. And there are characters that become more and more important as the story goes on. Anyway, I digress. Season 2 going to be great. Dan, final thoughts on season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender?
It's the weakest season, but it's still amazing, as we said at the beginning. And just really starts getting going at the end of the season and leaves you wanting more, doesn't it? And I just love all the world building that they do. I rewatching this earlier on today. I really want to watch Legend of Korra at some point. I don't know if that's any good, but
it is. It's different. It's quite different.
I've
good.
heard mixed opinions on it.
So some people hate it. Some people like it better than Avatar. But I think it's good. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender is better in my opinion. But it's all subjective. Art's subjective.
Yeah, that's generally what I'm hearing. But yeah, as far as season 1, yeah, it's just a great introduction to a wonderful story about 3 characters coming of age, really. And
yeah, I want to say, like, if what I got at, especially towards the end of the season is sort of, what's in store, moving forward, then I'm just unbelievably excited and can't wait to dive into season 2, even though I may try to wait for closer to our next discussion, but we'll see.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get Nessie on it too, because I know she enjoys this show also. She just this is the way it fell this week. And I'm just going to echo the same thing you said, Dan. To me, this is the weakest season, and actually by a pretty wide margin, I would say. Season 2 and season 3 are much closer in quality than either one of them is to season 1, in my opinion.
Season 2 is my favorite.
There's a lot of people that say season 2. There's a lot of people that say season 3. It's kind of almost a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Almost no one says season 1.
Yeah.
But so just for those of you that like John, this is as bad as it gets. Which ought to be good news, right? Yeah, so I guess that's it. So go subscribe to Dan over on Voice of Geekdom. Links to his YouTube page, his YouTube channel, his Twitter, and your Facebook group are all down in the description. You are a Tolkien YouTuber, really? Again, best Silmarillion.
Primarily.
Video. Now and again, I do other little bits and pieces of other things,
right,
but not very often.
Aaron, I doubt that. I'm pretty sure I won't be saying that, but your humor is well appreciated.
Yeah, so go check that out. I know you've got a Silmarillion video coming up this week.
Yeah.
Chapter 15B.
Should be Wednesday, yeah. Second half of chapter 15. And following week, it should be back to Numenor again.
Right on. And yes, come to see Kelly in the Voice of Geekdom Facebook page. Not me. I deleted my Facebook, but for you, I'll put the link in the description.
Kelly knows how much I despise Facebook as well. This was my pitch to her when I asked her to take that over. Was please just save me from having to look at Facebook because it makes me feel ill to look at.
These two gentlemen.
Honestly, but I need to enlist somebody to take over my Twitter page because honestly, I feel the same.
Yeah.
That.
I will say your most recent video, Dan, is you in conversation with John talking about the differences between book and movie in Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. It's really good. Go check that out.
I think you've got tons of stuff that we didn't even touch on in that video as well. It's just the topic that keeps on giving.
There's always more that can be said. I've been doing live streams for over 2 years now, and there's always something more to be said. You just got to stop at some point.
It was a real joy to do that with you, Dan, because I always feel as much as I adore the Lord of the Rings books, and they're my favorite work of fiction ever. I've bought 1 million, copies of the books.
Yeah.
But that said, I always do feel slightly, more than slightly outmatched when talking with, some of you guys about the books. But one thing which I feel like I have an encyclopedic knowledge of is the films. So it was a
Mhm.
joy to just get on there and
Yeah,
talk
no,
to movies.
I always say you are the foremost expert in my life on these like movies by a distance. And you know, I know quite a few people in the Tolkien fandom now. So.
But you still rank near the top, or at least the top for the movies.
Mhm.
Speaking of movies, John, you're going to be talking about a really good movie here in a couple weeks on your channel, John Webster Film. I believe the film is La La Land.
Yep, on August 14th, so that's in about 2 weeks at 7 p.m. I'll be talking with Hannah from the podcast Game of Bones, who I've known like going back to, well, I started listening to their podcast in 2013, I think, and then I actually met her for the first time in 2016. And
no, you didn't. It was 2017. First Con of Thrones?
Nope.
Oh.
No, I met her in person at GeekyCon, which was in 2016.
Okay. My apologies.
And she's just always been just such a wonderful spirit. And she, when I went to that convention, she dragged me along to the Wizard Rock concerts, which was not me in my element, but I had a wonderfully fun time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to talk to her again. And yeah, we'll be talking about La La Land, a movie both of us love a lot. So go ahead and watch. That'll be next Saturday, Saturday the 14th at 7 p.m.
Yeah, basically 2 weeks from yesterday. And then come back here next Sunday, same bat time, same bat channel, 6 p.m. Eastern every Sunday. We live stream. And next week is Star Wars, The Clone Wars, Season 7. Wrapping up The Clone Wars. And the different, like, I'm an old school Avatar fan. John is just watching it. It's the opposite on the Clone Wars. John is an old school fan, and I'm watching it for the first time. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Is that it then? Anything else?
I think that's it.
I think so. All right.
I'm just, once again, I'm just glad to finally be watching the show. And
me too, and I'm really glad that you have you've really latched onto it. It's good.
Oh,
it's good.
I had something I wanted to add actually.
Okay.
I said this to you earlier on, Stephen, but I'm going to say it on air. I watched this show initially, in part because I heard you talk about it quite passionately. John's watched it because you persuaded him to watch it. So I think, karmically speaking, you should probably watch Deep Space Nine now.
You're right. I mean, it's not like I haven't seen any DS9, but I have not watched Deep Space Nine.
Just saying.
It's
when I don't have other, like, lots of other series, because I'm about to watch. I have a week to watch season 7 of the Clone Wars. Marvel's What If is going to start soon.
Yep. After all that, though, you can take your time with it.
I will say, though, Dan, as much as I agree with you, it is a tall order, though, because, you know, Deep Space Nine is like, we're talking full seasons of 22 episodes.
Yeah.
And there's 7 of them. It's a lot to get through.
I have to try, though.
I know.
I just gotta.
Oh, God.
For some of you, that is going to be.
Sorry,
which reminds me, if you want to know why that joke is way funnier than just we have join our Slack group. We post memes, and yesterday somebody posted replace one word in a movie title with the word testicle, and literally 2 hours of us posting various. If you're not in there, get in there. What are you doing with your life?
I really don't think
and anybody's welcome. And if you want to join our Slack,
I don't think it sounds as funny from the outside.
But we had a blast. If you do want to join, send me an email at we3dragons@gmail.com, and I will get you in. Yeah, I think that's it. It made me laugh. But yeah, everybody, thanks for joining us this week. Dan, a pleasure as always.
Likewise.
John, good to have you back, buddy.
Yeah, good to be back.
Yeah. So next week will be me and you. Nessie will be back. I don't know if we're going to have a guest. We might. It just depends on if anybody like screams, "Hey, I want to do that," like Dan did with this. Dan was like, "I want to do that."
Yeah, I haven't really had a proper conversation about this show since I watched it, so this is really good tonight. Although I probably haven't contributed as much as I could have, but
it was still very nice to have you. Thank you for coming. And chatters, it was great to have you all here too. Most of you are regulars. I saw a couple new faces tonight, or new names, and it was really nice to have you all here. But yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about some Clone Wars, all right? And until then, you know what it is. Peace and be excellent to each other.